Held Captive Media fans, we are here once again to talk about a movie. You may know me as Logan or the guy who chews ass and kicks bubblegum. I'm not sure. But here with me is my boy Zane.
What's up?
And my lovely Franny.
One.
Because you usually kick ass and...
I get it, but like, no. Anyway, hi, I'm Franny.
And I'm all out of ass.
Anyway, guys, today we're going to be talking about SLC Punk. SLC Punk was written and directed by James Marandino and follows young punk Steve-O and Heroin Bob through the 80s punk scene in Salt Lake City, Utah, where they deal with being oppressed by the religious state of Utah, as well as the pains and fears of life progressing forward. From a drug hallucination scene memed on the internet more times than you can even count, to Matthew Lillard saying that there's a performance that influences him every single day he's a performer that came from this movie. Guys, let's talk all things SLC Punk. Now, before I get into your guys' responses, because I believe both of you just saw this movie for the first time. Maybe
No.
Franny had seen it before.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Anyways, we'll talk about
But
it.
I just want to say that this is one of those movies that's so angsty and like it has an absolute attitude to it, and its attitude is kind of like, you can join the program or get the fuck over it. We're not going to like censor how the 80s punk scene would be. It has great editing and awesome characters, and the set design is so believable for like this 80s scene. But overall, the editing, it's almost edited like an editorial, like it almost comes off like an educational video that teaches you about the state of being punk. So I loved that. Without getting into any spoilers, I'm just going to go ahead and say this is a movie you should definitely see. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Zane, what did you think of it?
So when the movie first started, we had also, there's been a couple of movies that we've been kind of going through that have been like, oh, these are fun movies, not meant to be good movies. And I was like, oh, maybe we're about to hit another one of those, because I'm like, I love Matthew Lillard and everything. And as I was like when I saw Jason Segel on there, I'm like, oh, this is just going to be a good time. This is going to be like, it's not Blue Mountain State. Is it Old School? Yeah, whatever, the right before Elf came out. Yeah. But I was like, oh, like this is going to be another just one of those fun ones. And then it just like progressively got better and better. And I was like, oh wait, no, this is just wholesale, like a good ass movie. Like I'm just really enjoying myself. So I ended up falling in love with it.
And one thing I want to add to what you said about it, right?
Yeah.
Because you were talking about how it changes so much progressively through. This is just like a little quick bit, and then we'll get to your thoughts, Franny, because I'm interested to know what you thought too. Another thing about the movie is that it actually starts kind of at the end in a way where it shows you like where these characters are going to end up in some regards, in the sense that like the opening scene is them walking around their fucking trash place and super punk style.
Yeah.
And so at the beginning, this movie's trying to make you think this is a rebellion movie, anarchy. I'm not going to say what it really is, but it completely will flip that idea on you. You know what I mean? It's really not those messages that you think it is.
I think more so than anything, it's a story of an idealist when you take an ideal and put it into the real world.
Yeah.
And
that's a good point.
that is exact. And I think that's why like I love the setting for it too, being in Salt Lake City. They're talking about like, oh, religious oppression and everything, but also like whenever somebody comes out of Salt Lake City and is like met against the real world, they're like kind of like, wait, my ideals are a little weird. Same thing happened. You get to it's a great backdrop to set this in.
We'll get into it.
And that's so overall, I'd say I ended up finding myself having so much fun with this. My dad grew up in the 80s, 90s punk scene, so that's all of the music in this was just like stuff that he had played for me my entire childhood. So I was having a great fucking time. I'm going to go ahead and put this at an 8.5.
Dope.
Like,
Nice.
I fucking
Now,
loved this.
Franny, what did you think of it?
So I actually thought I'd seen this movie before, but turns out I'd only seen like 20 minutes. But so much happens in the first 20 minutes
It
that
feels like a lot.
that I thought I saw the whole movie. But then it goes like so much more deep and like actually, like Zane said, like he thought it was going to be more of a fun movie, but it's a lot deeper than you think it's going to be based on like the cast and just like the marketing and everything. Like it's got a it's got a good message. I like this movie a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does like stay true to the time period. Like it looks like it was shot in the 80s and the
Definitely,
scene.
yeah.
And I really do like the backdrop of Salt Lake City because I feel like the most like hardcore rebellion comes out of like repressive areas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
And-
I
and
think
it
that's fun
plays-
to kind of set it there, even though like that night might not be what you think of when you think like the 80s punk scene.
Yeah.
You might not think Salt Lake.
It
but-
plays with the idea of like, you know, it represents the neighborhood effectively. It makes you feel like, okay, not only are these punks, but they're a bit of townies too. They know
Right.
everything about the city. They know everything that fucking sucks about it. What was your rating for the movie?
I would give this movie a 9. I like it a
9,
lot.
yeah.
It's really high up on my
So
list.
it just slowly scaled up. Well, we'll get into why that is. We'll come right back with the spoilers. So, guys, stay tuned. Hey guys, welcome back. We're here with the spoilers, and I have a question for both of you actually. Now, this movie is so insanely memed on. It's all over Facebook, and when MySpace was a thing, it was all over MySpace. It used to be that little, like, it used to be set in full screen mode on YouTube to watch at times with the like the hallucination scene and the acid
Really?
scene and everything. Did you guys know of the memes of this movie? Had you seen iconic images from the movie before you watched it? Or was it entirely like, wow, whole new world? Because
So-
I'm curious, because I feel like I see this fucking movie everywhere.
I'd say the one thing that like I know that I've seen was it's not punk to die.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when
Oh,
he's
that's-
like-
yeah.
Yeah,
oh,
right at the fucking end.
only posers die or some
Yeah.
shit like that.
But yeah, I was like, I've
You
seen
fucking idiot. That's the whole
that.
line. Only posers die. You fucking idiot. That's the
Yeah.
whole line.
I think I've just seen like this imagery of Matthew Lillard everywhere because he looks
Yeah,
so
right?
fucking
I've
The
seen
blue
good.
it.
hair. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Right.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
right.
we're talking about like this movie was it? I think it was like 98 or something. Yeah, 99.
98
Yeah.
or
think it's 99.
99.
I don't know why I think that, but I think it's 99.
Peek behind the curtain.
Thanks,
We
producer
got-
Lacey.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was made in 99, and it's 98. Okay, released in the States in 99. I know that it had like a festival run and
Weird
everything.
caveats.
Well, it's not really that weird. This movie definitely
Okay,
had
yeah.
festival runs, so it
Yeah.
makes sense
That
that,
makes
it premiered in
sense.
other places before it premiered here. And it had, I think it has every right to have festival runs because regardless of what you think of this movie, it's fucking well made.
and
like
it is a super artsy movie. Like
Yeah.
this
Right.
is exactly like anytime I've been to film festivals, like this is the exact kind of movie that I'm always hoping I stumble across.
and it's so fucking funny without
Yeah.
like actually deliberately going for jokes.
That's why I thought that it was
Like a comedy?
Like I thought it
Right.
was a
It's got
good
comedy
time
elements,
movie
yeah.
because there's so many times like every time fucking Jason Segel is on the scene with his fucking his like pink, blue, and white little like polo shirt, and he's like, oh no, hey, will you hold my glasses really quick? And then he gets
Right.
up there and he fucking beats the shit out of the whole
You
band.
know what's crazy? I don't want to say that you and I were a certain way in high school. But I do think that I'm not going to say what characters because I think we'll get in that for the game.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But there's a guy that was in our life that was really fucking tall and dressed like a nerd.
Yeah.
I like to pretend like that was him, but in my heart I know that he wouldn't do what Mike did. Just
No.
fucking going hard. It's honestly Mike is arguably the most punk rock character in the whole
Definitely.
film, and I think it boils down to the fact that he's not conforming to the fashion of being punk.
And that's something that
They
that-
touch on, yeah.
Yeah, that her name's not on the board. Brandy?
I think it is
That,
Brandy.
think so.
that Brandy talks about at the end, and something that like I was picking up on during when he's talking about like, oh, I'm gonna go like be a botanist or whatever, and they're like, this guy's gonna be a tree hugger, like what's going on? Like he used to smash windows because he thought like he just wanted to fuck shit up, and it's like, I think that is a great way of showing like what punk rock
Loving plants is punk. All right.
fuck yeah it is.
Well, I think the important part about punk, and like this is just the essence of it, and I think you're right, it could be loving plants. It's about, it's really about like the anarchist, you know, like you're supposed to be doing things that traditionally you're not supposed to do. And I feel like Mike is the ultimate punk for that reason, because it's like he literally is dressed up like suburban dad.
It's so funny because his character,
and he's just a badass motherfucker.
His character in this reminds me a lot of like How I Met Your Mother too.
Definitely, like Marshall.
Yeah, he's just like not who you think he is from the outside. It also, this movie gives a lot of like Clerks energy.
Definitely,
where like you don't like it kind of toes the line of like being a comedy and being something super serious in like the same kind of like way, you know, like very.
Yeah. It's incredibly stylistic too, like Clerks.
Right. It's
know?
not like going for the obvious jokes.
There's nothing about this movie that tells me cash grab. You know? There's movies of the period, like around the time, like Grind or, you know, like dumb teen movies that play on that. We're going to play off the fact that you're emo or punk or whatever, and that'll be a part of the overarching story and it'll be stylistic. This movie is like, if you're punk at the end of the day, you're wrong, because the whole message of the movie is that life can mean nothing. Yeah. Life can mean everything. What you're deciding to do, what you're deciding to wear in this long scheme of things means nothing. That's really the message of the movie. And somehow it tells that message through a positive light. Yeah. It's like, get over your hang-ups of trying to be important and different and just fucking enjoy your life.
See, that's not even what I took away from it.
What did you take away from it? And then Franny, I want to know what you took away from it too after.
So what I took away from it was more so just like, at the end of the day, they show so many different times where it was like when he's talking with his dad, and his dad's like, I didn't conform, I bought it.
I love that his dad's a dad in the other movie that we're like recording soon.
Yeah,
it's really funny. He's just the dad in every movie.
Kind of looks like my dad.
He doesn't not look. He doesn't not
look like my dad. So.
But no, it's more so just about like, don't get so caught up on the labels, because the entire time Matthew Lillard is like, oh, well, like, Mike's not punk. But Mike is the definition of what punk is supposed to be, because he's like, I don't care about the fashion.
Right.
If somebody's, like, going at my friends, I'm going to fuck them up. If I'm angry, I'm going to break shit. If I see something's wrong in the world, I'm going to go fucking fix it. Like, that is what punk is to me. And it's like, don't get so hung up on like what your ideal version of this thing is. Just do the things that you see as right, whether or not they match up with society or what have you. Because he literally ends it on, I decided I could do a lot more from inside the system from being without, which like at the beginning he was talking about like, oh, I graduated and we're gonna sit on like our couch and we're not gonna do anything with our degrees. That's how we're gonna be punk. And it's like, no, but going in, becoming a lawyer and like being able to like piss off the judges who are trying to like rig the system, that's fucking punk rock.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I mean, he's not going to be, I mean, I guess Matthew Lillard is a lawyer at the end of it. That's who you're referring to.
Yeah, that's Matthew Lillard.
But Matthew Lillard also himself, I mean, the ending line of the movie, and we'll get to your thoughts here in a second. I just want to say this one last thing. Matthew Lillard at the end of the movie goes, I guess I was a fucking poser. At the very end, and it's like accurate. Because because to be honest with you, to be truly punk, like in the sense of the way he understands it, is to be without system of any kind. It's to be without agency. It's to be without purpose. And it's odd enough that he figured out in a way like that all this shit's meaningless, and that is what gave him purpose. It's kind of an odd twist on that way of telling a story. Now, Franny, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of saw a mix of like both of yours, but my main takeaway is like fitting into an aesthetic or like what you think you should be doing isn't as important as doing what you're meant to do. Like that guy, Matthew Lillard's character was meant to like go in and like change stuff. Like that other guy was meant to be a botanist and like help the earth. Like I think that's honestly more punk rock than anything, is like using your talents for the greater good.
And ultimately what it boiled down to, and like this isn't something that Steve-O would really admit, but I think a part of it was a privileged upbringing in a way.
Right.
You know, like
rich kid energy.
The difference with Heroin Bob is that Heroin Bob went to punk because solely that there was no one else to liberate him anywhere else. You know what I mean? There was no one to like.
People have like different meanings.
He may have been
like
the first
that kind of
person
scene.
into it, but that all came from a part of him that was feeling empty, and that's what punk should do. Let me just finish this thought. Punk when it's at its best is escapism. And I think Heroin Bob's life was so bad in a lot of ways, and a lot of ways that I think a lot of people can relate to, even myself, in some ways. And it's like Punk was escape for him, whereas Matthew Lillard needed to escape something else kind of different. And that's why, like, it may be perceived that he's a bit stuck up or like a know-it-all or, privileged. But at the same time, he also lived in a house filled with people that just did not understand him at all. So that is something to be said. Now, what were you saying?
So I'd say, piggybacking off of what you were saying, it felt so much to me like Heroin Bob was looking for a safe space, and that's what he found in Punk. And that's exactly like, it's when one of your friends gets really into something, and then you start looking into it, and you're like, oh, they got some good points, and then you get like way too into it. Because it's like, Punk was a coping mechanism for Heroin Bob, and then he started to like get into a good place in his life, and he was like, I don't think that I need Punk to protect me anymore.
With his girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
Was Sandy, right?
No,
not Sandy.
No, Sandy was the one that Matthew Lillard
Is it
adored.
Trish?
Trish, yeah.
Trish.
But no, it was like, so Heroin Bob was in it because he needed a safe space, and then he got better and no longer needed it anymore. But Steve-O was still so like, no, like, this is who we are. This is who we have to be because we've defined ourselves on this. And it's one of those things where it's like being brought in versus going to it for a need.
Right.
Now I'm gonna ask you guys about favorite scenes, but there's like one thing I want to talk about before, and then we could get into more stuff after if I feel like we miss it. But I want to talk about a specific performance, and it's when Matthew Lillard at the end obviously finds Heroin Bob dead. Fun fact about that moment, Matthew Lillard refers to it as the most significant moment in his entire career, and he says it to the fact that he believes until that movie happened, he was not an actor. He was someone with charm and charisma that was getting by alone on that. Because when the day came for him to break down crying, to say all that stuff about, Bob and everything, he couldn't cry. They spent an entire day trying to shoot the scene, couldn't cry, couldn't do it. He realized, fuck, am I not really an actor? And then he said, everybody's depending on me for this movie. And he had this conversation with himself offset, like, everyone's depending on me to make this movie great. Everybody's depending on me to have this big emotional reaction. Bob was so incredible the whole movie, and now I'm like, I have this huge, epic, emotional scene that I have to carry on in honor of how great this character was. And he just couldn't do it. So he sat around, he just thought all day about his dad, and he eventually came to like that crying and that immense like emotional response. And recently he watched it at a con, like a convention, and he cried on stage because he said the emotions are so real because he just wasn't acting and he couldn't act then. And that's why he's still in acting classes to this day. He wants to be as good of an actor as he was back in 1998, 1997, whenever they shot it. When he was in that room crying about Heroin Bob, he said he's never hit that pinnacle again. And it's a good thing because it's something he can look forward to working on his whole life. I just think that story is really influential, and I feel like it's one of the things about the movie that maybe not a lot of people like meme about or talk about enough. Maybe they do since you had heard that line before. But when he's crying and he says like, only posers die, you fucking idiot, shit like that, you just instantly get like an earnest, like real reaction from it because you can tell the emotions are like high and real. So that's just something I wanted to mention. I wanted to say Matthew Lillard's favorite scene from the movie. So that's pretty much it. Franny, what was your favorite scene from the movie? One that we haven't talked about anyway.
One that we haven't talked about.
Or you can mention it, but I want to know something that we haven't talked about that you thought was really interesting.
I really like the scene when they're on the salt flats. I think that's a good background for talking about like the emptiness and like meaninglessness of life. I think.
Do you mean when they tried to get rid of that car?
Yeah,
I love that scene. It's so
and like
funny
no,
too.
when they're talking,
when they're talking about when they're
with the girlfriend.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah,
too,
and Matthew Lillard is just having that like he just broke up with that girlfriend. Like he's about to go meet that other one like right before the Heroin Bob stuff like happens.
And there's that sweet scene between Bob and Matthew Lillard where he's just like, you know, I know like you're depressed and stuff, and I just want to tell you like I love you, bro. And
I love
was just
that part.
like, damn.
I just think that's such a good backdrop for it because like it shows how he's feeling.
And it's
on
so
the inside.
ethereal. Like everything's kind of misty and whatnot. And it's just like, it's so, it almost feels removed from everything else. And it's just these people out in the middle of just like this ethereal space. Like everything came crumbling down. Matthew Lillard doesn't know who he is anymore. And it's like his buddies are like, hey, we got you.
Yeah. It like has the same like energy as like the Chrome scene from SpongeBob in a way, which like
Jesus
I love.
Christ. Future.
I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah. Anyway, Zane, what was your favorite scene from the movie?
So I think my favorite scene, I just love, like, I feel like poor guy. Like guys, we're always told not to be emotional, but like it's so nice when you've got like a buddy that you can just be real with.
Yeah.
The scene with Matthew Lillard and I want to say his actual name, Michael Gorgian.
I think it's Gorgian, but
Gorgian?
I could be wrong.
But yeah, with Steve-O and Bob when they're in the car right after like they went to go like tell Bob's dad happy birthday, and he's like I'd never met Heroin Bob's dad before that, and now I kind of understand why. And like Bob is like, I'm not gonna cry, and Matthew Lillard's just like, you can cry, you don't have to cry. He's like, it's all right,
or when
man.
when he apologized and he's like, you
like-
don't have to be sorry.
like, don't do that.
I'm sorry. That was like, oh
Right.
fuck.
It's just like it was
These punks have emotions.
Yeah, no, and it was just like such like the pinnacle of friendship right there when they're just like kind of sitting in the car and Bob's like, I have to apologize. That was a bad situation. Like I need to like, and it was just like, no, dude, you don't have to. Like, I got you. You're my friend. And it was just so raw between those two actors. Their chemistry the whole time was just absolutely crushing it.
Especially, like, I'm not trying, like, Matthew Lillard was still, like, I mean, obviously he had this great emotional scene in the movie, but I'm always blown away by Bob in general, like, that character. I feel like he was just so fucking real.
Absolutely.
And then, yeah, so my favorite scenes, I kind of have like a 3-way tie, and I was hoping you guys would at least talk about one. So
Yeah.
I'm just going to go over these things and you guys can tell me your thoughts on them because I think that they need to be said. All right. Part 1, best scene. I'm going to have to go with Sean with the acid in his pocket.
That one was a lot of fun.
Running around, attacking his mother. Like, all of that shit was crazy. And then the reincorporation, because this movie actually, for being about punk rock and all this, it has a lot to say about aggressive drug use.
Definitely.
It has a lot to say about religious oppression building onto that drug use, because the reason why Heroin Bob basically overdoses and all this other shit, and the reason why he was so easily given such a horrifically strong drug is because at the end of the day, the people of SLC and pretty much people of Utah, it's easier to get hard drugs than it is beer. Shown by another scene that I loved, the Wyoming trip. I fucking love the breakdown and the explanation of like, because we live in Utah and because we look a certain way, we have to do this, this, and this. I thought that was such a fucking cool ass scene. And then they get there and they have this like womanizer character with them who is fun in his own right.
But also he's not even he's a womanizer without everything.
No. Okay, here's the thing. Yes, they claim he does it for the romance, but like, let's be real.
Probably.
Let's be real.
I love the fact that there's so many characters in this. Like, even the smallest little characters, they'll just introduce these people, and then there's like 5 minutes of exponential character growth just out of fucking nowhere. And it's like, it almost feels like, oh wow, we're spending a lot of time with this person. They're gonna have to be super important.
And every time, even when it's a small character, like I'm not saying Heroin Bob's a small character, but he has an example of this. There's always a small moment for that character to basically explain their life view for the viewer. I mean, they do it in so many words, but to explain that character's like not a womanizer, but a lover of love, and not really punk, but hangs out with probably the most sketchy dudes in Salt Lake City. No offense to them, but there's a reason a guy like that hangs out with those dudes. It's because they have really crazy parties where he can hit on girls almost aimlessly.
Yeah.
So you get that part of the character. With Heroin Bob, you understand that he avoids problems aggressively, and he also is somebody who's very anti-drug and all this shit. And I think that that's so funny because you get more than that out of knowing he's anti-drug. You also get the fact that he seems like somebody who's just constantly anxious, constantly on edge, like doesn't know the chill, doesn't know how to chill. And I love that about the character.
Yeah.
The one other thing, one other scene I wanted to talk about is the big, like, I don't know, I don't want to call it editorial. It's not really what I want to say. Like almost the documentary scene, essentially.
The house party?
Yes, when he's explaining the fight, he's explaining the reasons for the fight, he's explaining the breakdown of each individual class and character of this time, why certain ones fight each other, why certain ones don't. And then at the very end of it, during this big brawl, he's like, and the summation, like the understanding of all these rules, none. And then they just all start beating the shit out of each other. That's a great fucking scene.
Yeah.
I love that scene too because they go through and he says, but he refuses to connect the lines where he's like, well, like you have to fight, like fighting is done because of the structure, but no, I don't want to fight because of the structure, but even though that's the reason for the fighting, so he sees the contradiction in his own belief system.
That's like the beginning of it too.
And then he's like, but no, it's still, we don't have a reason for fighting. We just do it because we do it. And it's like he comes so close to seeing the like
you can just see like his like structures aren't like super solid. Like the hills he'll die aren't very deep.
Yeah, and you get to watch that break.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Is there anything else we want to talk about the movie, or do you guys want to just get into the game? Oh, you know what? There is one other thing. Let's talk about Elon Musk in this movie.
Dude.
AKA Mark.
Yeah.
Dude,
What?
the Mark character in this film,
Yeah.
and the scene where he's like, "Did somebody steal my weed?"
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah.
Do you trust
That guy's fucking real. That guy's real.
Yeah.
That guy's very
Definitely.
real. And
Absolutely.
Zane has gotten me around so many people like that.
Me?
Yeah.
What? That doesn't sound like me at all.
Definitely not.
That deadpan stare.
Yeah, I'm not joking. Definitely he's put me in the position where I've met a few Marks. But I like that character. I thought it was interesting that he ended up leaving and then never coming back, and they like addressed that in the movie.
Yeah.
It was just like a fun side character that we could like basically he was introduced in a big way during like the big Punk show, as well as like some of the other characters you come to know. And I just thought it was so fun. It was like a little vignette. Like his part of the story really isn't that like combative with the rest, but it's so fucking fun of an addition for the film.
And I think that's a great kind of like tie-in with the fact that they do such a good job of they're like, this movie's so punk, we don't have to tell a story in a certain way. We don't have to edit a certain way. We don't have to take shots in a certain way. We're just going to do exactly however we think is going to service the story the best. They do things like, hey, let's have a little 10, 15 minute where we go really in depth on this insert generic. Doesn't really specify if he's German, if he's supposed to be French, if he's got a European-ish accent, and then it just kind of like glazes past that. But
He died in a plane crash like his parents.
Yeah. But
Anyway, guys, let's go do the game. I feel like we've gotten a lot out, so we'll be right back with a fun little game for you guys. Hey folks, welcome to Dangle. Is this me or not?
Oh my god.
Please no.
Can you
No.
hit the applause button? Hit the applause button.
I don't want to.
Is there what does this blue one do?
Hit the if you like that clip, you can hear more like it. That's not what it is. Not what it is.
There it is.
Try again. Try again. No. I'll sit here all day. Thank you. Thank you, audience. Well, dang old, is that me? Guys, thank you. You got now don't make me interrupt this, all right? Don't make me reach over there. Guys, what we do with this game is and we do this with a lot of movies. We've done this in the past on old podcasts and stuff. Is we look at the characters in the film, especially ones that really have dynamic characters, and we go, wait, which one of these people kind of fits who I am? And the best part is when other people tell you who fits you and you hate it. I'm going first because I think this one's incredibly true. I am 1,000% Heroin Bob. And let me explain why in many details. For one, we have the same personality. That's annoying. Two, we both have had big issues that we've completely ignored for the sake of not dealing with it. We both have had interesting backgrounds, and I used to be incredibly anti-drug.
Yeah, no.
Used to be. No, I'm just kidding. But like even to marijuana to everything, I was very anti-fun, and I think that it was because I was depressed, and then one day somebody came along, lightened my load a little bit, lightened my mind, and I accepted things. So I see myself as Heroin Bob for even more reasons than that. I just don't want to talk about myself all day. I see Zane 100% as Steve-O. Just saying, you got to consider I'm going to say this even though I probably shouldn't, the divorced parents aspect. You got to consider, you have to consider the like not completely poor background, like having a chalkboard room is something that Steve-O might have.
No, Steve-O didn't have chalkboard. He just spray painted the walls,
which is what you would have done.
If my parents wouldn't have yelled at me, I would have done. Yes.
So I would say you're definitely Steve-O in all the negative ways too, but I don't feel like shitting on you. And then I would absolutely say that I think is it Brandy or Sandy? I always forget which one's which.
So Sandy
who's the one that saves Heroin Bob?
That's Trish.
Trish. Okay, Trish. Brandy's Trish.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You took my.
I mean, I feel like
She looks different every like 2 years.
Yeah.
And that's totally a Trish thing, as shown by the movie.
Yeah.
Now, Zane.
You almost took my entire casting.
Well, it's probably because it's really fucking accurate, but you could explain why in your own way.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'll end with Franny's because that's fun. So I feel like I would cast myself as Steve-O, as I just stated, but it's because like I'll get in these moods where I'm like, somebody brings me something and then I'm just like, oh shit, that aggressively that. And I get a little bit locked into it. And it's like the outside world doesn't really matter because like I figured my shit out. And it's like, well, even though I'll have these little like gaps and I'm like, oh, well, like that doesn't really connect, but I'm gonna go ahead and put that shit to the back until I'm ready to process it. And like a year or so later, some crazy shit will happen. I'll be like, oh no, my life philosophy, it means nothing. I've got to become a growing human being, and we're all changing and developing, and it's a beautiful process. But it's something that I feel like I have a very similar hit with Steve-O, and I feel like there's so many of those things in my life that, as far as like the way that Heroin Bob has interacted with Steve-O, like that you have brought to me, and you've been like, hey buddy, I've got this thing for us to do. And I'm like, oh, well, shit, I guess that's in my life plan now. And then I just fucking run with it. And it's so many times that it's just been like, not so much that like
all or nothing.
Yeah, well, that's still partially for me, but no, as far as like for you being Heroin Bob, like there's so many times that it's just been like, we have sat there and been each other's rocks, and even though
don't make me cry on this podcast.
Like,
even though I swear to God,
even though we
God,
we've got other friends and everything, there's just so many times that it's been like,
no, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. He has friends. I swear to God, I'm just being a dick.
There's so many times that we hit some shit, and it's like, fuck, man, I need to hit up Logan. Like we gotta handle some shit, and it's always me and you, ride or die. Even when we're like if there's like, oh fuck, what was it when he like gets mad at like Heroin Bob, and he's like, man, I fucking knew you were a poser, and he's like, I didn't mean that. You're not a poser.
Yeah,
it's
just like
that's
the little,
exactly a
the
conversation.
little come around always.
Yeah, that's the exact kind of conversations that we have together. Now for my hot take. Oh, hi, Mark.
Can I guess?
Mark.
I was gonna guess you'd say she's Sean.
No, dude, she's Mark all day long.
You
Just
think she's Mark?
Who's
just
Mark?
roll up.
Mark
is the
Elon Musk looking dude.
Just like roll up and just say some like really
wish
weird
I had that
shit.
money.
Not so much just the money, but just like in general, you're just like, oh yeah. Like,
there was one moment with Mark where I was like, "Am I Mark?" And it was when he was looking at his Laserdisc collection and showing it to everybody. I'm like,
no,
wait,
that's definitely you.
That part's
that's
me.
a
Yeah.
Markism of yours.
But that's the only Markism I have.
No.
Yeah.
But there's just some times where like, especially when he was like, oh, like do you trust Bob? And it's like,
just a little unhinged.
It's like, Franny, what are you talking about? And she's like, I've killed a man. And I'm like, Franny, what do you, check out my gun. Like, shit, put that away. Like,
I've been attacked.
There's been so many times where I'm just like I'll be talking with Franny and it's like a totally normal conversation.
And then she'll just say something where you're like,
and you're
what?
You're like, I'm in danger.
What was
like,
a bad hot take you had recently? I was just thinking about it.
I don't know.
What
Don't
was
say
it?
anything cancelable.
It's not cancelable. It was really funny.
You still can't convince me to put my own gun in a safe. So
That's
I think
true.
that's pretty
Even
mark
though
of
you
me.
sleepwalk.
Bro.
I fucking know, right? Thank you for bringing that up, actually.
Or we would be like
What the fuck, man?
I feel like the like,
Zane.
oh, like, let's go steal a car. Let's go do something fucking crazy.
No,
Not
I'm
steal
definitely a little
car
unhinged.
level.
Zane, do you like Swiss cheese? Then you're gonna love me one of these nights, because she's gonna fucking put holes in my body, okay?
No,
I'm
I'm
so
not.
glad you
Stop.
are fucking Mark. Holy shit, dude.
It's like,
Oh
it's
my
these random
God.
times, because they even talked about it in the movie. They're like, oh no, like, it's just a weird little, like, everybody's got those weird little personality flaws. You just learn to deal with them.
Franny.
And it's
Mark's
like
always
this-
smoking weed.
Yeah, but
Guys.
there's, like, it'll just be like a totally normal conversation, and you'll just be like, we've got to ditch this car.
Guys.
And then do it in the wrong way. And it's like, not only is she unhinged, she also really fucked this up, and now we're all in danger.
All right,
Yeah.
all right. One little last story, and then I'm gonna ask Franny her thing. And I mean, this is the last story where we'll be shitting on Franny. I just think this is really good. I am approximately between 1,000 and 2,000 pounds, right? I mean,
Shut
we
up.
won't get into specifics. I'm not here to count the calories or the
Shut
pounds.
up.
But regardless, I'm a big old boy, right? And we have our studio's a little tight because producer Lacey is a great producer, and she made this tight space look like a studio. And because of that, you know, we have to be careful getting up. There's a lot of cords and everything. And I'm the biggest dude ever, so I Zoidberg, like, you know, I like put my hands up and like shiggle out like this. And Franny, I was like, all right, Franny, just put your arms up, and she instantly just knocked everything over as soon as I said that.
Yeah.
Just
Just
push.
I feel like that
She
sometimes.
basically pushed things to be like, I can't knock it over if I push it down, bitch.
Bitch.
Franny, who are you? Who are we? In
You
this
know-
movie, not as individuals. I think we actually got
I mean, you
nailed down
guys
pretty
already
good.
you guys already nailed it. I was gonna say the same thing. Zane is Steve-O. You're Heroin Bob. You're as fucking neurotic as Heroin Bob, and you drive me just as crazy as Heroin Bob.
At least I know that about myself. That's why I said I was like Heroin Bob.
I'm so glad you stopped being so much like Heroin Bob and found one thing to chill your ass out.
Yeah, like Heroin Bob did.
Right.
You know,
And then
it's weird for
Is
me to
this the
accept that my
moment-
Trish is more of a Mark. You know, I never
Is this
thought
the
that.
moment where we find out you guys love each other?
Ugh.
I could tell them a story that'd prove I love you, but I'm not going to.
You don't need to.
Off camera?
No, just the fact that you've been dealing with me for so many years.
Dealing with you.
I
After you
think
just said I'm a
proves it.
neurotic mess, you're like, and you've been dealing with me. I'm like, I thought I was the neurotic
You know
mess.
what? I was gonna give myself a little more credit and say it was like not Brandy, the one like
Trish.
crazy Trish.
I feel like you're Trish.
Trish. Yeah, I think I'm Trish. But yeah, now that you say Mark, fuck, I hate it. But goddamn, you're not wrong.
Yeah. Let the record show Lacey went Brandy to herself. So
Definitely.
that absolutely.
Definitely.
Where like I say some crazy shit and she's like, that's not very punk rock of you. And I'm like, fuck, that wasn't very punk rock of me. Like
Yeah.
that's absolutely producer Lacey.
Yes, for sure. And just your guys' relationship as
Yeah.
well.
So have you decided, are you more Trish or Mark?
I think I think I want to be more Trish, but sadly I'm more
You're
I'm a big
more
sprinkle
of
of Mark.
a Mish or a Chark. You're more of a Chark.
Oh, I'm so glad that I was like, I swear
Fuck.
to fuck if he takes Mark from me. Like, cause you were like,
He likes to
wait,
see me in a
everybody-
better light, all right?
Yeah. No, I've fucking known you forever. I'm like, I know this bitch. Let's go. I'm a just like these new lights in the studio. I'm gonna go ahead and light this shit up.
Anyway, you guys, let's move on. Let's just end this. I think this is a good spot, guys. Well, actually, I have something to say. Okay, I have something to say to the fans on YouTube. All right, I got some shit I want to say.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, in regards to this YouTube film review bullshit, I don't know who started it. I don't give a fuck. The one thing I do know is that we did it harder, and we did it faster, and we definitely did it with more love, baby.
Hell yeah, baby.
You can't take that away from us. Subscribe, leave a comment, make it mean about Zane. Just kidding.
Not
But you
mean
can do
about
that.
me, though. Be
Franny's had
nice.
enough. Love you guys. Peace out. Thank you.